Well, first off, I want to say how excited I am that this is my very first sermon as a staff minister for the InSpirit Center for Spiritual Living. It's exciting stuff. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. It sounds like you're excited. So that's good. As I've been, when I think about it, and when you say the word minister, I don't think there's a lot of people who the first image that pops into their mind is this. I don't think. And so that's just a reflection of the fact that I am still in this process of discovering ministry. And so as a staff minister, that's what I get to do here. That's the gift that you guys have afforded me, is the opportunity to continue to delve into this idea of what pastorship means, to be stewarded by amazing ministers like Reverend Sandy and Reverend Kirk, and to have to dig down as deep as I can to find the patience to deal with a bunch of teenagers that you guys send to me every week. That know that I love them, and I sure hope they love me too, because I haven't been tied or taped to a post or anything yet, so I think I'm yet. Put an emphasis on yet, as they will have you know. And so in this process of learning what it means to be a minister, one of the things that stood out is that it's what we really are like metaphor junkies. We're like parable junkies, simile junkies. We're finding a million new ways to say the same thing over and over and over again, so that whatever way is going to work for you to hear it is going to finally meet you when you're prepared to meet with it. So I welcome you all here today, and I know that you're all prepared to meet with these words as I speak them to you here. And so one of the most common metaphors, similes, that we use in this philosophy is one that was actually kind of given to us by its founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes. And so I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with Dr. Ernest Holmes. I'm a huge fan. Huge fan of the guy. Love him to death. And he used this metaphor a lot. And so I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to use it because it's the most fundamental metaphor that I think that we can use to make my point this morning. And it's a big idea. That's what ministers are trying to do. They're trying to take these huge ideas and squish them down and then get them out to you as much as we can in the tiniest amount of time possible, because I don't know anybody that's ever volunteered for a 4-hour church service. We could do that today. You guys want to start now? I could talk for 4 hours. Oh. Don't ask a minister to talk for 4 hours. You'll get 6. So the first thing that I want to identify for you guys, the first big idea, is this word God. Now, throughout my travels, and I've been around, what I've learned is that there's a lot of people that don't like that word, God. And there's a lot of people that love this word, God. And I happen to land somewhere right in the middle. I use it because it applies to what I'm speaking in the context of what I'm trying to say. But what happens is people get locked into a certain idea of what that word means. Or more importantly, an emotional connotation that they can't shake. Anybody got one of those? I'm going to ask you to be vulnerable today. Yeah, there's a couple of these. So when I speak of God, here's what I'm talking about. And I'm doing this because I want you to really understand the context of what I'm speaking when I use the word God. What I'm talking about is not a person or personality or a being or something that's off somewhere that gets to decide what's good enough and what's not good enough and who's right and who's wrong and when you're prepared and when you're not prepared. When I'm talking about God, I use that word to describe the sum total of all things in the universe. Every thought, every feeling, everything in experience, everything that we can see, that we can touch, that we can taste, that we can hear, every emotion that we feel, every experience that we transcend, every movement of our life, all of it as one thing, that's God. That's a big idea, huh? That's a lot to take in. That's a really big idea. So when you hear me say God, that's what I'm talking about. And I like to describe us as thoughts in the mind of God. Dr. Holmes liked to do this too, which is this idea that, it's hard for us to when you hear people talk about we're one, this is what I mean. Because when I talk about God, if God is all that there is and everything in existence, then that includes us, which makes us one thing in God, right? Okay, who's on first? A little bit, but that's okay. And so when I talk about God, that's what I'm talking about. So today, in this philosophy, it can be really easy to get stuck in your brain about how to figure it out. And don't get me wrong, that's why I love the ministries, because it's given me the opportunity to really get into that nitty-gritty and study and philosophize and all this kind of great stuff. But there's a practical livingness to this experience and to this philosophy that doesn't have to be all that complicated to get results. But that's what I'm here to do, is to take all that information I've been out gathering as a studying minister and try to deliver it to you in pill form that doesn't come with like the 7-day list of possible side effects. Right? So that's what I'm here to give to you guys, is the version that actually enacts change in your life without repercussion. And so the metaphor that I'm going to use to describe this philosophy today is, like I said, it's one that Dr. Holmes used. It's one that we use when we talk with the teens. It's one that we use when we work with even the youngest of children in the youth program, which is this idea that the universal soul is like soil, fertile, prepared, ready, everything necessary to breathe life into anything that it receives. The soul of the universe is like that perfectly tilled topsoil that has all those nutrients and everything in it that can turn anything into life. And what we find in this philosophy is that sometimes it's hard to say, well, yeah, God can do anything, when we think about God as a person who decides whether it should get done or not. But because God is not a person or a personality, that part is kind of taken out of the equation for us. Yes! So then who gets to be the decider of what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what gets to go and what doesn't get to go? Any guesses? The kids beat you to it. Yeah, that's right. Us. We decide. We're the determining factor on what goes into that soil. So I'm going to read something to you from Dr. Ernest Holmes from the Science of Mind textbook. This comes from page 354. Of the Science of Mind textbook, and here's what Ernest Holmes has to say about this. The soil does not argue or deny, but goes to work on the seed and begins to create a plant which will represent the type of manifestation inherent as an idea in the seed. It's a little up here, right? Let me give you something that you can feel. When you take a tomato seed, what does the tomato seed know? How to be a tomato. And he continues by making that point. From a cucumber seed, we get cucumbers. From a cabbage seed, we get cabbages. Always the law maintains the individuality of the seed as it creates the plant. Never does it contradict the right of the seed to be what it really is. To me, that just makes my heart sing. It's poetic to me. It's amazing to me. The individuality of the seed is never denied. It's not like the soil takes in the seed and says, okay, you're mine now. What are we going to do with you? Simultaneously, it never denies its right to thrive as exactly what it is. So when we look at the universe in this way, when we look at life in this way, the stuff that we approach, the stuff that we experience in every single day of life, what we start to find is that the soil is our greatest ally and our greatest foil. Here's how I like to describe it. Today's talk title is Weeds Have Seeds. So I want to apologize to all the members of the medical marijuana community that have accidentally wandered in here today. But stick around, I'll make it worth your time. The seed is the thought in this metaphor. The seed is our belief, our idea of something. And when we think it, being the thinker, what we think into this idea, we plant that seed in the soil. Now, what does the soil say to the seed? Yeah. Yes. Why? Because the soil is there specifically for the sake of delivering itself unto that seed, to supporting it and nurturing it and bringing it to life in the most powerful, beautiful, pristine way that it can possibly do. Just absolutely everything the soil is immediately surrendered unto the seed so that the seed can thrive. I've worked in a lot of gardens. I mean, it doesn't seem that way all the time, but if you know what you're doing. So, if our thoughts are seeds that we're planting into the universal soul, which is the soil of our lives, and you had to take the last 24 hours of every thought that passed through your mind and imagine that God was conspiring to make it happen right now, would you suddenly be living the life that you had always wanted to live? The mind is an erratic thing sometimes, isn't it? I mean, imagine, a lot of people confuse this with the idea that our thought, it creates exactly what we think. If that were true, I'd probably be riding a unicorn over a rainbow right now. So what the true statement there is that each and every one of our thoughts has volition. It has spiritual momentum. And so much thought as we put into every seed is the amount of momentum that it has. Or how much time and energy we've spent making sure that we've planted the seed so that it will grow. Now here's what's interesting about this principle or this idea is that we all know that we want amazing lives, right? Raise your hand if you would not want a super awesome, happy, loving, caring, kind, peaceful life. One. We got it. Got one. So the question is, if that's true, what we want is what we get, then why aren't we living that right now? It's a difficult question, but it's an honest one that we have to ask ourselves. And there's only one person on this earth that will answer it for us, and that's going to be us. Because where the planting is done is in your mind. So no matter how clever you are out here, trust me, I know this, I'm a pretty clever dude. The experience that you have in your life is going to be defined by how genuine you are in your heart and in your thoughts. That's what's going to make the difference. Now here's the horrible self-fulfilling prophecy that a lot of practicing New Thought members fall into, is this trap. Oh man, I hate that guy. Wait a second. I don't hate him. No, that's rude of me. I can't hate him. I'm not a hater, I'm a lover. Oh, I can't believe I hated that guy. Oh, why am I so hateful? Oh. Now the message here is that, the thought that we plant more deeply has the opportunity to thrive more lusciously, right? So if we spend 2 seconds with the clear thought of like, I'm a lover, and we spend 30 minutes with the idea that we're a horrible, evil hater, which seeds are we giving the most attention to? So which ones are going to show up when it comes time to reap the field? And this is difficult work. Well, this stuff is not easy. The reason that we band together as a community is to give ourselves the opportunity to get some helping hands in our garden. Because when it comes to the soil of our own individual lives, we have been given a garden, and that garden is our life. And in that garden, we can plant any seed that we could possibly conceive of at any given time. And it's my belief, and I do believe that it is so, that the universe will conspire to make it so. So then we have to take responsibility for this idea that we've got this garden. I take responsibility. Okay, I take. So we've got this garden that we need to invest our time and energy in. And what happens? We get so invested in each other's gardens. I never do this, by the way. That we neglect our own gardens. The perfect gardener in someone else's garden goes home to a disheveled lawn. So what we have to tend to is our own garden, because what we want to do is we want to invite people here. Right? I'm a minister for the most selfish reasons I could possibly think of, because I need as many people reminding me of this truth, supporting me in it, nurturing in it, and calling me back to it. That's right. People are like, hey, Reverend Brian, I heard you say this. That's not very ministerial. And I have to say, I didn't mean to make the marijuana joke on stage. But that's the process. That's what community brings us, this opportunity to be genuine and to be vulnerable with one another in such a way that we can approach our garden with more intent and with more specificity. As I was getting ready to say it, I was like, but it gives us the opportunity to grow something that we can be proud of, that really reflects the image of who and what we feel we are internally. Because every one of us knows from deep within us that we are powerful, loving, caring, passionate people that want each other to thrive, that have been taught to fear one another, thinking that your thriving could possibly take my ability to thrive away. And we're seeking each other out to remind each other that together we thrive. That as a community, we grow higher, taller, stronger than we've ever been before. And when we contribute our time and our energy and our money and our consciousness and our prayer to this community, what we really do is we reaffirm the seeds that we're planting. Our love shines the sun down upon them. Our abundance waters this lawn. Everything that we do in this community is intended to be selfish in the most selfless way. Because if we understand the way this thing truly works, and I heard Bill Clinton say this and it cracked me up, because he was talking about something totally different, but when he said this, it kind of blew me away. When you understand how the world really works, everything that you do that is selfless is the most selfish activity you can do. Because when you understand our interconnection to one another, that we, as Mother Teresa said, belong to one another, we can begin to take responsibility for our own lives and to steward love for the lives of those around us in a way that makes the people who haven't joined us yet really interested in getting to know us. But the way we do that is by living and being and breathing this truth. By going through and being a gardener who removes the negativity, the judgment, the spite from our garden. Who weeds our garden without throwing out weed seeds from the other pocket at the same time. You imagine somebody in a garden pulling that out? And yet in thought, we do this because it's how we've learned. But that's why we come here, is to learn a new thought, a new idea, and to practice it. Because just like when we plant seeds and we practice growing flowers, we have to do that with our thoughts. My fiance has planted a lot of flowers in our day, and we don't have any right now, so I'm going to say that that's a work in progress. Yeah? Okay. So is the garden of our lives. That's what we've been afforded, the opportunity to come here, to reveal to each other that we are the very essence and presence of that which allows our garden to thrive. And when we really commit to love and to kindness and to peace and to joy, we begin to thrive in such a luscious way that we can finally compete with the very thing that the universe creates on its own. You ever stood in a forest? Didn't need us to come in there and tell it how to grow. Its majesty is inherent, as is ours. So be a good tender of your garden and contribute to the community that you have here that supports and nurtures you and your garden. And know that as we do so, we do it from a place where we plant only those seeds that enact change in our lives, that blossom into love. And so I'm going to invite you to do that with me now as we go within to prayer, as we plant this seed into the universal soil that is the soul of all things. And so what I know is that there is a presence in this universe that is indeed the universe itself. Every thought, every feeling, and it is constantly seeking to express its goodness through love and joy and power and passion and kindness. And so because we know that it is all that there is, we must accept our inherent presence within it, as it. All that we are is the abundance of God right now. Everyone in this room. And so we breathe that in and we know it and we feel it. And it allows us to speak our word, to plant our seed in such a powerful way that the blossoming of this truth is an inevitability. Taking things from possibility to probability with this prayer right now. Our community grows and thrives and lives as a breathing example of kindness in the world. And as it does so, we invite and allow ourselves to be open and accepting to all those who come. For every path truly does lead to God. And so what we do here and now is love each other in the way that we would wish to be loved. But more importantly, we love ourselves enough to pay attention to our thought and to dismiss that which no longer serves us and to nurture and embrace that which we know God is. And that is pure potential of love right now. And as we do so, we give thanks for it because our gratitude is what allows us to simply let it rest in the soil. To plant it firmly and deeply and accept this word and this prayer and say yes. Knowing that the universe, as we've delivered it into the soil, conspires for its expression to not only become into our lives in the way that we imagined it, but in even grander ways. Because the universe knows an even greater goodness than we could possibly know. And so we call that in and allow it to multiply now as we release it into our lives and into each other's lives as we hold it sacred and we hold it in our conscious awareness right here and right now that we are one. And so it is. Thank you.